Hey, sweetie, your mother showed me this Carvana thing for selling the car. I'm gonna give it a try. Wish me luck. Me again. I put in the license plate. It gave me an offer. Unbelievable. Okay, I accepted the offer. They're picking it up Tuesday from the driveway. I haven't even left my chair. It's done. The car is gone. I'm holding a check. Anyway, Carvana, give it a whirl. Love ya.
So good, you'll want to leave a voicemail about it. Sell your car today on
Carvana.
Pickup fees may apply.
Welcome to the Dogs Podcast with your hosts, Blake Reneker, Justin Charles, and Josh All.
Hey, what's up, Browns fans? Welcome back to another episode of the Dogs Podcast. Josh All, your host today, and I've got a really good guest for you guys lined up on the show today. I'm excited to bring this one to you guys. I've got Dan Wilkins. He is a senior NFL writer from The Score, and he broke down and graded every single team and their draft class from the past weekend, and we have him on here to talk about his overall grade for the Cleveland Browns, which, by the way, I think you guys are really going to like what Dan has to say about this draft class for the Browns here in 2026. Before we jump over to that conversation, guys, please make sure you go to jointhedogs.com. Become a part of the Dog Pack community. It's a great place to be. Awesome Browns fan community there online where you want to be. You can just chat up in the Discord 24/7. All things Brown. Crash out when Mary Kay Cabot posts that Deshaun Watson has the inside track to be in the starting quarterback and all kinds of fun stuff that we're going to be having conversations about throughout the spring and, of course, over the summer. So jointhedogs.com, June 1st, fantasy football signups open, and we do the Dog Pack Discord live episodes. And it's a great way to support the show. Appreciate everybody in there. Jointhedogs.com. We'll kick it over now to my conversation with Dan Wilkins. All right, guys, like I mentioned in the open, I've got Dan Wilkins, senior NFL writer for The Score with me today. Dan, thanks for joining the show. How you doing, man?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to talk about this Browns draft class because it's a bit of a spoiler alert. It is one of my favorite in the entire league this year. So
that is great to hear. I've been hearing that from a lot of analysts and people that give out grades, and I've got yours pulled up here. We'll talk about the overall grade that you gave to the Browns draft class, which, spoiler alert for everybody, was very high. I don't know if you can get much higher, but we'll go through each pick, get Dan's opinion on the selection for the Browns, the draft class as a whole, and then we want to kind of just go real quick through the other AFC North teams. What did the Steelers, Bengals, Ravens do in this draft, and how did their classes turn out in comparison to the Browns? So, Dan, one question I didn't ask you before we started that I'm kind of interested. Do you have like a specific NFL team that you're a fan of?
yes. So I actually grew up a Raiders fan.
Okay.
So I know the struggle, I guess, is what I could say. I think we have like similar fandom paths where it's been a while, but also maybe kind of turning the corner now. So we'll see. It's I think the Raiders did quite well too, but maybe not as they didn't grade quite as highly as I had the Browns.
Gotcha. Yeah, there's definitely fan bases that can share in the pain. It's, you know, the Raiders, the Jets, the Cardinals, the Browns, kind of these teams that every now and again you put together and, oh, that was a nice season, and it was a flash in the pan. We're right back to the
There's
bottom.
something about growing up as a fan of a bad team that makes you more into the draft, I think, because it's that's your Super Bowl, right? So.
It's what we say every year. It's our Super Bowl. And for the Browns this year, it really feels like instead of just, celebrating the Super Bowl, we might have actually won it. So let's talk about this. Why don't you give me the overall grade for the class, and then we'll dive into it pick by pick.
Yeah, so the Browns were one of 2 A+ grades that I gave out. I try not to go super high, but this was just one of those classes where pick after pick, I was just like, yeah, that's exactly what I would have done. I love this for the Browns. I love this for what they're building. Heading in, I'm sure we'll talk about this a little bit later, but heading in, I was kind of looking at this as a class that I thought could really kind of set the foundation, if they do it right, set the foundation for where they're going. I wasn't necessarily looking at this like, okay, if the Browns nail this, they're going to be a playoff contender this year. And, you might feel differently. I still would like to maybe see an answer for the quarterback position next year. But my whole outlook on this was, okay, if you can set yourselves up go and get that guy next year. And, there have been stories this offseason about how the Browns were the ones to propose giving up, being able to trade 5 picks. And, you think ahead and like, maybe they've got something big planned for next year. I don't want to read too much into that, but the whole idea for me is allow this draft, in addition to last year, we mentioned pre-show that last year was great, maybe aside from the Dylan Gabriel pick. I think that they did really well last year. Other than that, and adding another strong class this year could really set them up for where they're going. And I just think they did such a good job of that.
Yeah, it's definitely how it feels, because obviously there was no quarterback to go after in this class or anything like that. And, on the show here, we're still holding out hope for Shedeur Sanders. We thought, given what he was working with last year and everything, he didn't look too bad, honestly. And if he can take a big step forward this year under the new coaching staff with these new weapons, this new offensive line, who knows? Maybe the answer is already there in place. But if not, yes, 2027 does set up pretty nicely with this group of, I call it like this infusion of youth that the Browns just put into this. Because really, to come into this draft with 9 picks and come out with 10 players plus 2 additional picks next year, I mean, that's just setting this team up for success, whoever's under center in 2027.
Agreed. And to your point, like if we want to start with the first pick there, I love the move to trade down first. We were all talking heading in. I think, whether it was going to be offensive line or receiver for the first pick, you're probably going to come out of the first round with 1 at each position. But the closer we got, I think the more we realized it was probably going to be offensive line to start, just because those guys were going to fly off the board in the middle of the first round, and it's probably going to be slim pickings when they were back on the clock at number 24. So love the move to trade down, sliding back 3 spots, pick up some extra draft capital that helps them later in this draft. And I will say, I don't think Spencer Fano was necessarily my top choice, but I think that that's probably more just about me. And at a certain point in the process, I was probably trying to speak a Monroe Freeling pick into existence here for the Browns, where I was like, man, you add all those guys that they did this offseason on the offensive line, which, to be honest, I wasn't sure whether they'd be able to do that with all the cap issues they had, but they did such a good job in free agency reshaping that entire group. But then that left tackle spot was just so obvious. It's like, okay, you drop in a left tackle and we're good. And Freeling was like that prototype. And after the combine he had, I was like, man, the analytics-driven Browns front office, they're going to love this guy. But I do think it is worth pointing out that Spencer Fano is also an elite athlete. And while I kind of admittedly wasn't projecting him as a left tackle, I thought he'd either stick on the right side or maybe slide inside to guard. I do think it's easy to see why the Browns think that he'll play there long-term. Just the movement skills offer so much upside as a pass protector, and in particular, both as a weapon in the run game. So I think that maybe while I would like to see more of a power element to his game in the long run, that's kind of true for a lot of these guys making the jump to the NFL, including Freeling. So I think Fano compensates a lot in the meantime, just with his motor and grit. And overall, just a really solid addition to round out that offensive line, and a guy who I think is going to be an absolute weapon in the run game.
Yeah, we're really excited about Fano. He was a guy early on in the process I wasn't super high on as far as taking him high in the draft. Just I thought the shorter arms, the lack of length was going to pretty much restrict him to playing guard. But the more I learned about him and read up and watched and everything, it became apparent that no, this guy does have the ability to play tackle. 100% going to happen? We'll see. You can never say anything, for certain. But even if he does have to end up sliding into guard, they got a great player. But I think he's got what it takes to play on the outside. They're going to give him every shot to earn that spot and lock it down. But I know the Browns draft room, there was an article published from a reporter inside the room, and they said the Browns were saying, like, this is the best person. Not even like our favorite player, but just the best person in the draft. He's a great teammate, great leader, all that kind of stuff. So I think the Browns got an all-around great pick here at 9.
Yeah, I was absolutely, like, the more I thought about it, like, I try not to get too stuck in my personal rankings, but also like Fano and Monroe Freeling and Ione and Francis Maui-Noah, they're all in that like upper tier, right? So at that point, it's just like picking what works for you. And the Browns are confident he can play left tackle. And the way that I always think about it with these tackles who like may not have the length, although throughout the draft process. It seems like his arms got a whole inch longer. I don't know how that really works, but
I don't know.
I always default to saying let them stick at tackle and see and prove that they can stick there. If they can't, then you switch them inside. But to your point, even if he has to move inside down the line, I think you're getting a really good player that's gonna help them in the long term.
Yeah, it's a little like I saw today. I forget who posted it on Twitter, but they said that the Panthers are going to play Caden Proctor at. It was the Panthers, right? Took Caden Proctor. No, it was, I'm sorry, Dolphins.
The Dolphins.
Yeah. It was the Panthers took Freeling. So the Dolphins said they're going to play Caden Proctor at left guard. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, and there was a lot of talk about the Browns being high on Proctor, right? Like there's obviously that those rumors didn't come to fruition, but people talking about them even taking Proctor at 6, which obviously was probably not going to be as well received as the final pick was. So yeah, I always thought Proctor was maybe more of a right tackle / guard at the next level, but I think to your point, guards are valuable too. So even if he doesn't become the long-term left tackle, like he's going to be a really good player for them, I think.
Yeah, and for me, that's what it really boils down to is did you get a long-term, high-level starter for your offensive line? And I think the answer is absolutely yes.
Yes, agreed.
All right, so why don't you talk to me about 24 here? Man,
Casey Concepcion is one of my favorite players in the entire draft. So as soon as this pick was made, I was like, okay, I'm all in on this class. This is a home run for me because I had him ranked as my number 3 receiver and the number 14 overall player. And I think 14 is probably a little higher than most. But even as like the number 3 receiver, I kept coming back to that after my rankings went up, and I was like, I feel like there's a chance I'm going to look back on that and realize I was too low. I just think he's the type of player, you don't want. I'm not going to compare it to any other players, big name players that have been selected in that range, but I think he's the type of player who we're going to look back and realize it was a steal to get him at number 24. Just a really easy separator at all levels of the field, short area quickness and kind of really nuanced route running skills kind of allow him to lose defenders at the top of the route. He's explosive, elusive with great vision after the catch. And he's also a lot more competitive than you'd think in contested catch situations for his size and frame. And also, I don't know what the Browns are planning to do in terms of his role, but he's a potential difference maker in the return game as well, if they're willing to use him there. Obviously, he had some drop issues, and maybe those do continue at the next level. But I think that everything else he can do as a player, I just think it kind of compensates for the occasional miss that you might have in that area of the game. And I also, crucially, a huge part of the evaluation for me was that I think there's a vertical element of his game that is kind of just waiting to be unlocked with better quarterback play at the next level. I just think there are so many examples on his tape at Texas A&M of him breaking free into the open field and just having a ball airmailed over his head. And it's like, it was a constant theme. And it was like, okay, we're missing something here. Like he should also be considered one of the better vertical receivers in this class, where I think he was in many ways kind of pigeonholed as like a short to intermediate guy who's can do some gadget things where you get the ball in his hand. But I think he can do a little bit of everything. And I just love the idea of adding him into this offense.
Yeah. From everything I learned about KC during the process was Marcel Reed was not very good at Texas A&M getting him the ball. And there were a lot of routes where, like you said, he could have had huge chunk plays just down the field and the ball's just nowhere close. So he's wide open too. He's, he already shook his defender. And I looked at Justin before the draft. Justin's one of the other co-hosts here on the show. We were both super high on KC Concepcion. Like at 24, if you don't go receiver at 6, that's the guy you have to get. And it turned out like that was the Browns' plan too. Andrew Berry said they loved KC. That was the plan all along, 24, and they were very nervous that he wasn't going to be there. And I guess a couple GMs even texted him after the pick and said, good thing you took him because he wasn't getting any further. We were either going to trade up to get him or we were taking him next or stuff like that. So the Browns got, I think, very fortunate to get him.
Yeah, I really thought that he had a chance to come off the board in the middle of the first round, and I was not sure he was going to get this far. Like I can't remember if I had him going to the Jets in my final mock or one of my final mocks, but I just thought the Jets were such an obvious landing spot for him with the need a receiver. I thought he would fit in nicely with Garrett Wilson and A.D. Mitchell. Obviously, they went tight end and circle back on receiver at the end of the round. But yeah, for me, it was always, whenever I was laying out my mock drafts, it was, I think at one point just for the thought exercise, I went with Carnell Tate at number 6. But for the most part, I was locked in on tackles and then circling back on a receiver. And it was almost always either Casey Concepcion or Omar Cooper Jr., but favoring Casey because I was just so high on him as a prospect.
Yeah, and I mean, you're not wrong about Carnell Tate. Andrew Berry did come out the other day and say that it was like a 3-pack of guys at the top of the draft for them, and it was Fano, Carnell Tate, and a third player. He didn't say who it was, so everybody's kind of speculating. Right? Yeah. I think it could have been Jordan Tyson. I think it might have been Caleb Downs.
Yeah.
Just kind of my gut feeling. But either way, so those were like their top guys, and man, Casey when that pick was made, because I really like the Spencer Fano. Obviously, the sexy, splashy tools players are always the more fun ones to do. Especially, we were doing a live stream for the first round and all that. So when we hit Concepcion, it's like, yes, we got a playmaker. Like you said, all-around weapon, can play everywhere on the field. I think he's kind of being, at least from what I've gauged from the Browns fan base, slept on a little bit. I don't think people are really too hip to how great he can really be.
I agree. I'm so high on him as a prospect, and again, I just think getting better quarterback play at the next level will unlock a whole new version of the player we saw at Texas A&M, and I can't wait to see how he's using that offense.
Same, man, same. So talk to me then about 39, because there is no way in hell I thought we were going to be able to pull this off.
Yeah, I didn't think so either. When I was laying out, I think my last mock draft was a 3-round mock, and for the Browns specifically, I remember. This was like the first time I really took the exercise of going beyond that like tackle and receiver and tackle type thing. And I come back to the second round, and I'm like, I would love if they just doubled down on receiver, right? Because the long-term need is there. Obviously, they have a couple bodies there right now who are, they're going to have a role this year, but you want to have a long-term guy for your quarterback, whoever that ends up being, whether it's Shedeur or a guy you draft next year. And I saw Denzel Boston as a borderline first-round player, someone who I would not have been surprised if a team in the top 20 was super high on him and just took him there. Obviously, it's a weird draft, so we've had some differing evaluations, but I was super high on Denzel Boston as a prospect. I couldn't believe he was there for the Browns. And then when they picked him up, this was another one where I was like, yes, I absolutely on board with this. I think he's a really unique fit with Casey Concepcion. I think Concepcion's probably best deployed, or at least on many occasions, out of the slot. So you have that like big body boundary receiver to pair with him. He's got the size, body control, high point ability to really kind of dominate that contested catch game as he did at Washington. But I also think that he's kind of been pigeonholed as just that type of guy, where similar to what we saw with Teteroa McMillan last year, I think he actually moves really well for his size. He's not just the type of guy where you're only going to throw him contested catches and that's it. Like, I think he can also separate pretty well for his size. Also a physical runner after the catch, and he can block on the outside. Little bit of a limited long speed, and I guess that's why he got to this point in the draft, but I think he is an absolute steal, and like I said, just such a perfect fit with KC.
This episode is sponsored by Kalshi. All right, Browns fans, we've all messed around with the sports books before, right? And let's be honest, you're always kind of playing against the house. But with Kalshi, it's different. You're not betting against some sports book. You're trading against other real-world people. There's no house trying to beat you. Kalshi just runs the marketplace. So if you think the public is wrong, like everybody's overreacting to these smoke screens in the draft or sleeping on a prospect, you can literally take the other side of the market. And it's not just sports either. You can trade on other real-world stuff, interest rates, inflation, even wild weather outcomes. It works like this. Simple yes or no markets, your risk is capped up front, and your payout is locked in. So if you trust your takes and instincts, and I know you guys do, go check out Kalshi and see what markets are live right now. So head over to Kalshi.com/dogs, KALSHI.com/dogs, DAWGS. Deposit just $20, and Kalshi's going to match you. They're going to put $20 free into your account. That's a great deal to get started. So again, Kalshi.com/dogs, $20 match when you deposit $20 into your account. Hey, Browns fans, we just partnered with Fanatics to bring you guys the best Browns gear available. Head over to brownsmerch.com to check out everything in our storefront. I know you guys want that new Shedeur Sanders number 2 jersey. We've got those in there. Rock the Depoy and the D-Roy jerseys with Myles Garrett and Carson Schlesinger, along with the other studs from last year's draft. We've got a collection of Browns hats, T-shirts, and hoodies you can browse through too. Again, that's brownsmerch.com to check out our Browns gear powered by Fanatics.
If you felt stuck trying to lose weight, you're not alone. Enter Weight Loss by Hers. It's designed to support you in reaching your goals. And Hers now offers access to an affordable range of FDA-approved GLP-1 medications, including the Wegovy pill and the Wegovy pen. With Wegovy at Hers, lose up to 20% or more of your body weight when combined with diet and exercise. It helps you regulate your appetite, eat less, and keep weight off. Plus, Wegovy is the first GLP-1 available in a pill, so there are no needles needed. Everything is 100% online through Hers. You'll connect with a licensed provider who will determine if treatment is right for you. If prescribed, your medication is delivered right to your door. No insurance necessary. And it doesn't stop there. Weight Loss by Hers goes beyond medication by offering access to 24/7 messaging with your care team and tons of in-app lifestyle and nutrition tips like recipes, meal plans, fitness videos, sleep content, and more. Even better, with a range of affordable GLP-1 options, Hers makes it simple to find an approach that fits your needs and your budget if eligible. You'll get a treatment plan personalized to you and unlimited dosage changes as needed. It's weight loss designed to work with your life. Ready to reach your goals? Visit forhers.com/women to get personalized, affordable care that gets you. That's forhers.com/women. forhers.com/women. Weight Loss by Hers is not available in all 50 states. Wegovy is the registered trademark of Novo Nordisk A.S. To get started and learn more, including important safety information, Wegovy clinical study information, and restrictions, visit forhers.com.
I sold my car in Carvana last night.
Well, that's cool.
No, you don't understand. It went perfectly. Real offer, down to the penny. They're picking it up tomorrow. Nothing went wrong.
So, what's the problem?
That is the problem. Nothing in my life goes as smoothly. I'm waiting for the catch.
Maybe there's no catch.
That's exactly what a catch would want me to think.
Wow, you need to relax.
I need to knock on wood. Do we have wood? Is this table wood?
I think it's laminate.
Okay, yeah, that's good. That's close enough.
Car selling without a catch. Sell your car today on
Carvana.
Pickup fees may apply.
So put some fears of some Browns fans, not everybody. I'm not talking about all you guys out there, but some Browns fans still think, did the Browns find a wide receiver 1 in this class? Because that's what we've been wanting forever. It's like we want that alpha wide receiver 1 go-to target. You know, this guy's a clear-cut wide receiver 1 in the NFL. Do you think they got it in Concepcion and or Boston?
I think that the combination of them, if nothing else, can be that type of production, right? Like, I think that the idea of a wide receiver 1 is kind of oversold if you have a lot of good players, which I think that they have now, also including Harold Fannin, who was one of my favorite players in the entire draft class last year. And I think we saw this past season of how his skills are going to translate to the next level in ways that I guess teams were probably worried about coming from Bowling Green, saying, okay, you know, maybe his like unheard of tackle breaking ability is not going to translate against higher levels of competition. But he also had those games against like, was it Texas A&M and Penn State where he dominated them? It's like, I think it's probably going to translate, and then it did. Yeah. So I think with these two and Harold Fannin, and honestly, I really like the tight ends that they drafted later in this draft, so we can get into them later. But I think just with the combination of guys they added, whether you can label someone as a true number 1 or not, I think Casey Concepcion has the potential to be that guy for sure. But whether, you know, they earn that label and be those guys who are going to be, you know, by the time they're up for a new contract, probably getting $50 million a year, I can't say for sure, but I think the collection of them has really given them kind of that production that you're going to be looking for out of your receiving core.
I'm so excited to see how this looks because, I mean, those were two of my top wide receivers in this class, and to get them both, we talked a lot about, well, should the Browns double dip at 6 and 24? And then it was like, well, they could do 24 and 39, but I don't really know who you're getting at 39. I never expected them to be able to get KC and Boston without using 6 or trading back up into the first round or something.
Yeah, at 39, if I was laying out mock drafts, I probably would have been thinking like, okay, at this point, probably Boston and Cooper are gone. So you're looking like Jeremy Bernard, Antonio Williams, like those types. So yeah, to get him this late is one of my favorite values in the entire draft. Because like I said, I think he was an easy first round pick, and I would not have been surprised if someone took him in the teens just because they were that high on him.
Yeah, and then talk about value, because when I was doing a lot of mock drafts and simulating some things, at 24, I was like, well, maybe this is where they take Emmanuel McNeil-Warren. And then it was like at 39, well, maybe he falls. I'm hearing some stuff. Maybe he slips out of the first round. Maybe they're able to get him or trade up to 34, 35 and grab him. 58? Talk to me, man. What about Emmanuel McNeil-Warren here?
I don't really understand how he got this far. He was in most of my first round mock drafts as well, because I saw him as that like clear number 3 safety, potentially even the number 2 safety, depending on what you're looking for. I think he's an imposing presence on the back end. He processes the run game really well, navigates traffic in the box, and he's a really physical tackler. And also, I'm sure this has been the main selling point in Cleveland ever since he was drafted, that his nose for the ball, just the way that he's forced fumbles over the last 3 years. I think it was 10 forced fumbles over the last 3 years. You know, he's probably not the most fluid athlete in coverage, so maybe not the type of guy that you want in man-to-man situations, but I thought he flashed some really nice instincts as a zone defender and the ball skills to make plays on the ball when he puts himself in that position. So I thought he was a huge steal at this spot. He could have been the pick at number 24 or 39, and I would have been like, yeah, this is good. So to get him at this spot, this is kind of like that annual tradition of where a draft Twitter favorite tends to fall, and then it's always the Browns who kind of stops his slide and gets him. And in this case, I think they're going to get a really good player on the back end of the defense.
Yeah, we really feel confident the Browns got 4 day 1 starters in these first 4 picks. And honestly, they're 4 first round projected guys. You just talked about each one of these guys could have gone somewhere in that 20 range, you know, and I mean, outside of Fano, obviously was a top pick, but it's just crazy that we were able to come away with all 4 of them. It blows my mind.
Yeah, I mean, this is, well, I do like what they did on day 3. These 4 picks were basically the crux of my grade. I was like, how could you have these 4 picks and this not be one of the best grades in the entire draft? So this is what made it an A+ for me, because it was through the first 2 days, it was pick after pick being like, this is perfect. This couldn't have gone better.
Right, exactly. So the first 4 picks really drove the A+ grade, but let's talk about the 6 supporting picks after this. You know, 86, we take offensive tackle Austin Barber out of Florida. What was your opinion on that pick?
I thought it was good. So this is one of the picks where I like it. I like the idea of continuing to build on the offensive line. I think we can say for certain that last year showed you can never have too many offensive linemen. Obviously, last year was a grind. He's got lots of experience at both tackle spots. Another really impressive athlete for the position. I think there's probably a theme here in what the Browns are looking for in their offensive linemen, obviously. I would think at worst he becomes a solid swing tackle. There is value in that in the 3rd round. I know it's not the most exciting addition, but I do think there's also starting upside here. Like if down the road, maybe Spencer Fano is the type of guy you want to slide into guard, maybe Barber becomes a tackle, or maybe, you know, I think Tevin Jenkins is only back on a 1-year deal, right? So if Titus Howard becomes the right guard, maybe Austin Barber is the right tackle long term. I think he gives you that like flexibility, but at the very least, he's going to be a nice swing tackle for them. This is a spot where, selfishly, when I was looking at it, and I was looking like, okay, if I was going to have one more home run pick for the Browns, I really wanted to see them take Keontae Scott here, just because the idea of having that, having the pass rush become even more dangerous with him coming screaming out of the slot was just such a fun idea to me. He was such a fun prospect who was one of my favorites in the entire draft, but I don't think you can ever, again, going back to last year, I don't think you can ever argue with the idea of continuing to bolster the offensive line and giving yourself depth where, injuries are going to happen. You have to have guys who can slide in. I think Barber's the kind of guy who can give you that.
Well, they definitely attacked the offensive line again at 86, and then they just kept with it at 146. They go Parker Brailsford, and as far as I understand, correct me if I'm wrong, but he's more of like a true like center kind of only prospect. Is that about right?
Yeah, I agree. Probably a backup center, a little on the smaller side. Probably want to see him get a little stronger the next level, but again, going with the theme here, he has the athleticism that they are clearly coveting for this group. So I think that he could be a nice value pick here in the 5th round. So some additional depth on the inside. I think the plan is to play Elton Jenkins at center.
Mm-hmm. I think so.
So he's back on a 2-year deal. He's already 30, I think, right?
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, to me, this is just like a depth piece for him. And for the most part, that's what you're looking for on day 3. And I think it's a worthy swing there.
Okay, cool. And then 149, right there, stay with Alabama, Justin Jefferson, the linebacker. What can you tell me about him?
Yeah, he's a good athlete. I thought he showed some good instincts in the run game, can kind of slip through traffic and find the ball carrier. He's a good tackler. I think the movement skills also show up in coverage too. Probably not a fit to be taking on blocks at his size, so maybe best deployed in like a sub-package role early on. But good depth to have early on. I know the Browns obviously have a need at linebacker because the future of JOK is a little uncertain given his neck injury. But yeah, I mean, their pick at linebacker last year, Carson Schlesinger, was an absolute home run. I know they signed Quincy Williams, who I think could be a nice fit there. And I think that Justin Jefferson could be the type of like guy who offers you some coverage upside in passing situations. And I think he'll obviously be a potential special teams contributor right out of the gate.
Yeah, and that's what I was asking for all offseason too, with like the day 3 pick specifically, is get guys who can be good depth pieces, can step into a role on offense or defense if they need to, but give me some guys who can freaking ball out on special teams, because our special teams units were horrible the last few years. Really last year, just bad. And I'm glad we got some guys here who can, contribute on that side too.
Yeah, agreed. And I really hope that they allow Casey Concepcion to do that as well, because I think that he can be a game changer there.
Yeah, me too. Man, that return ability for him, that's going to be fun if they exploit that, which I think they will.
Bit of a Josh Cribbs throwback, right?
Yeah. Just talking about him today. He got hired on at Kent State, his alma mater. So good for him.
Oh, did he? Cool.
Yeah, special teams analyst. So
awesome.
Who better, right?
Yeah.
All right. So these last 3 picks, we'll jump out of order. Obviously, we've got 2 tight ends and a quarterback. Let's save the quarterback for the end here. Talk to me about these 2 tight ends in tandem, because you said you kind of liked what we did at tight end. So
I do. This was obviously this was a really deep tight end class. I thought they found some good value toward the end of the draft here. Obviously, you have Fannin last year, who, like I said, absolute home run pick. I think he's a potential star, and having him alongside the 2 receivers you drafted as your long-term pass catchers is so exciting to me. But I also thought that Joe Royer was a nice pick in the 5th round, just a reliable target over the middle. He's got good hands. I believe he only had 2 drops over the last 2 seasons and none in 2025. I thought he was a kind of player who's good at finding soft spots in zones. He's also had some pretty crazy yards after the catch numbers this year. I think he was at 8.9 yards after the catch, which was right up there with the best in this class. Probably needs a little development as a blocker, but I'm sure he can get to a point where he's functional there. And I think that him in tandem with Fannin, this whole the league is moving toward these like multiple tight end sets, right? So you need to have depth and the kind of guys who can get on the field together here. And I think that Royer can contribute alongside Fannin, and I think the same is true for Carson Ryan. I think you're probably not expecting much out of a 7th round pick. Obviously, when you make 7th round picks, you're not going to be surprised if they're cut at the end of training camp. Like, that happens. But I do think that Carson Ryan was another really interesting sleeper at this position. I think he probably had a chance to get drafted higher than he was because he's a really good athlete. I thought he showed a good feel for route running, and he's fast and physical after the catch. But crucially, as it pertains to his fit with this group, I think he's also a good blocker, which should give him a chance to get on the field a lot sooner than people might expect for his draft position. So I think that this group moving forward, similar to how I view the receivers, is they've got a good young core of guys who they can grow with. And again, we'll see what it results in terms of like wins this year, but the main thing is like laying the foundation for the future. And I think that this is a big part of how they did that.
That's great. I love that breakdown on the tight end position. And so in between the two tight ends, we took quarterback. Obviously, we took 2 quarterbacks last year, took another quarterback this year. Taylon Green, I feel like was the most... He was the guy that people were really interested to see where he goes, what round, what team, what offense, because the physical traits, they're unbelievable. It's just off the charts kind of stuff. But talk to me about Taylon Green overall as a quarterback and how you think that fits for the Browns here.
Yeah, you said it, the physical traits. I mean, he is quite literally the most athletic quarterback prospect of all time. Obviously has all the tools, explosive runner. He's got a big arm. He's even got a little bit of experience working progressions coming out of the offense that he was in. Long way to go in terms of doing so on time. And obviously the accuracy and decision-making would have to be cleaned up for him to be a functional quarterback at the next level. What are the chances he hits? Probably pretty low, but that's why he was drafted in the 6th round. But I am always in favor of not only taking quarterbacks in every draft if there's any uncertainty, or even if there isn't that much uncertainty, just take quarterbacks, especially when you get to day 3, take these flyers because you never know, but especially with someone with this kind of upside, right? At the very least, I think we know that Todd Monken can scheme up the quarterback run game, so there's probably an opportunity for him to be a package player pretty early on in his career. And if it doesn't work out at quarterback, his athletic gifts probably give him an opportunity to carve out a career for himself at another position. He's just that good of an athlete. The obvious comparison here in that sense is Terrell Pryor, who I imagine you guys are pretty familiar with. That 1,000-yard season back in 2016, was it? That was the wildest thing. But I think that he can be the same kind of player. I wouldn't rule out him being a quarterback, and I think that that's why you take this shot and give him a chance. And, if you're out of it in December, like, well, I don't know, get him on the field. Why not? Just let's see. But yeah, I'm always in favor of taking swings on guys with these type of physical traits. And especially when you're talking about, what was it? It was the 6th round.
Yeah. Yep. 6th round.
Yeah, that's, I wasn't going to be surprised if he went off the board in the 4th round, especially after Drew Aller went in the 3rd.
That's true. Yeah. Yeah. This quarterback class was very strange. You didn't know, and that's one thing Andrew Barry even talked about, was as soon as Ty Simpson went at 13, it's like, these guys are all going to go a lot earlier than what we have them valued at. So to still get Taylon Green in round 6, because I do think there's more to his potential NFL career if it doesn't work out at quarterback, like you said, because, last year we took Dylan Gabriel. If it doesn't work out at quarterback, you can't use him for anything else. There's no other opportunity for him in the league but a guy like Taylon Green. And I did compare him on my show the other day to Terrell Pryor, exactly, because very similar size, similar college output, production, both poor completion percentage, high turnover, insane athletes, insane rushing ability, just monster human beings. That I do think that if I had to put my money on anything, it'd be Taylon Green will not be a quarterback for very long in the NFL. That's just 6th round picks with those kind of college, numbers and things. Doesn't work out, but betting on those traits is a great bet. Yes, absolutely agree. I was hoping that he would find a nice landing spot just to see if he could become something really at any position. And I do like the fit with Todd Monken, especially, coming from where he came from, having built a really effective quarterback run game. Again, I think that there's an opportunity for him to contribute in some way this year, just as a package player, specifically as a runner. But yeah, I'm always on board with taking shots like this. And again, a 6th round pick, why not? Yeah, like who else are we going to take there? I think it was a great dart throw to make at that point in the draft. So overall, the Browns get an A+ grade from Mr. Dan Wilkins. That is awesome to hear. And your enthusiasm just about our class in general, the overall group of guys is great. And I keep telling people, like, we don't get a whole lot of these wins as Browns fans, and to have a complete win in the draft, I get it's on paper, These guys have to go on the field and actually make it happen, but we're not on the field yet. So this is what we have. And it's okay to be excited about the team doing something like this.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And like I said, when we were going into the draft, I was looking at this as an opportunity for the Browns to be like, okay, we probably can't be expecting a playoff run this year. I think. I mean, maybe you really never know. But I just want them to build this thing up the right way, and I think that this draft has gone a long way toward doing that. Now, if Shedeur ends up being the guy, then great. If he doesn't, I think you're dropping a quarterback next year into a really good situation. Like suddenly, again, heading into the offseason, I was pretty concerned about what it was going to look like because of the cap situation. I was wondering how they were possibly going to have enough resources to build up the offensive line, and they've done it all in one offseason. They also managed to add 2 pass catchers who I really like. They had the tight end from last year. They had the running back from last year. I think that they've got the supporting cast that they need for a quarterback, whoever that ends up being, whether he's in-house or he's going to be added later. And we know the defense should be good, right? So obviously losing Jim Schwartz creates some level of uncertainty there. But yeah, I'm pretty excited about the Browns. I think you got it. As is the case with any rebuild, we have to exercise some level of patience, but I think it's pretty inspiring that it's certainly headed in the right direction.
And how many teams, I don't know if you know this off the top of your head, but were there other teams able to accumulate draft picks in next year's draft out of this weekend? Or because I feel like that's not being talked about enough, that Andrew Berry was able to net 2 extra 4th-round picks next year.
I think there may have been one other team that picked up an extra 4th-rounder, but I might be wrong on that. They may have been the only team. But either way, like that was definitely a theme from this draft where, like, you saw this last year where the Falcons moved up in that deal with the Rams and they were content to give up a future first. And obviously that was a bad move. I think we all understand that giving up a future first-round pick when you're not an objectively great team is just far too risky. And we saw they ended up giving the number 13 overall pick. But this year in particular, teams seem to be resisting giving up picks in 2027 just because everyone seems to be so high on that class, right? And I think for good reason. So to add that extra draft capital, if you need it to be able to move around, to move up, maybe you do need a quarterback, I think it certainly can't hurt to have that in your back pocket.
Yeah, I was just so pleasantly surprised. You know, as a Browns fan, you expect disappointment, you expect heartbreak, you expect things to not go your way, and then just kind of sitting there through draft weekend like, this all worked out really well. I'm like, yeah, this is wonderful. I'm very happy, very pleased.
Yeah, I'm very happy for Browns fans. I hope that this is the first step. I mean, I would argue the second step because, again, I was very high on last year's draft class, and I think we saw the result of that at times last season. I think a lot of those guys are going to take another big step forward next year. Like, we didn't see too much out of Mason Graham, but I still really am excited about him as a player, especially alongside Myles Garrett. I'm curious to know what you expect for. Obviously, we're going to continue to hear Myles Garrett's name. I think it's never going to go away, just like it doesn't for any aging star player. But are you on board with kind of trying to build a winner around him, or will it reach a certain point where you kind of think the timelines might not match up?
Oh, there's definitely a certain point where the timelines won't match up anymore, and I think we've been kind of towing that line for a couple seasons now. Obviously, he requested the trade last year, and then we made him the highest paid non-quarterback, yada, yada, yada. And I do still believe that when the Browns moved his bonus dates back to September this year, I don't think that was like they were planning to trade him, but I think we need to leave the door open here if something comes our way. We have no idea the draft is going to go this way for us. No clue.
Yeah.
And we don't know how it's going to pan out. And what if somebody comes to us over the summer after June 1st, because that's the only time you can trade him. You can't do it before then. After June 1st says, hey, we'll give you 3 first-round picks. It's really hard to turn that down. Now, is there somebody, maybe nobody's willing to do that? Like you said, giving up future assets in the first round, probably not smart. Didn't work out very well for the Browns when they did it. So I think it just left the door open, but I don't think there's any sort of urgency to move him. and we'll see how this season goes. If it plays out well and maybe we don't make the playoffs, maybe we're in contention though. We're in the race, we're in the hunt. And then we get that quarterback next year that we need, or however it works out. Maybe the timelines are a lot closer than what it felt like a month ago.
You can turn things around fast with a couple good drafts. I think we've seen it with multiple teams over the years. I think that in many ways, the teams that are considered like the perennial basement dwellers, everyone looks at them as like a 3-4 year rebuild. Like it doesn't have to be that hard. Like it's really like the Browns have nailed this offseason. If to me, I consider them a team that's going to be, I'm not going to be projecting playoffs or anything. Maybe you're looking at 5, 6, 7 wins, but even if you're in that range, like that might not sound great. But if you're a super competitive 5, 6, 7 win team, then you're so clearly that team that's going to be taking a step next year with another great draft. So again, it might be even better, especially if they get good quarterback play this year. I don't totally know what to expect for that position. I think they're probably going to start Deshaun Watson just because of the money. Am I wrong there?
So some people think that because of the money, he'll start. I'm just of the mindset that it's pointless because it's his last year.
I
He's
agree.
gone.
Yeah.
He's gone next year anyway. So, I mean, it does us no good. Any rep he takes is a rep wasted that Shedeur could be, using to prove that he's the guy or not. We need to know the answer to that. And Deshaun, he's not the future, so he doesn't need to be the present. That's
we
my
certainly
opinion.
know what Deshaun Watson is now. Yeah.
Yeah, and he's not good.
Yes. Yeah. So I agree. I would not waste any time on that, and just I would let Shedeur play, and then obviously he's a pretty polarizing player. So I think if you let him play at the end of the season, you have an answer one way or the other.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing I will say this is just my personal opinion. I think the Browns know they're starting Shedeur. That's my gut feeling. When they did their head coaching hire, I don't know how closely you followed with that, but there was a questionnaire that they had every coach write up, answers for whatever. Yeah, the homework. So I think it was a 6 or 7 questionnaire that they had to answer these. And there was only one question that mentioned any player on the team specifically by name. And it was, how would you continue the development of Shedeur Sanders?
Yeah.
So and to me, I'm like, that they know they're going to try it with him for a year.
Yeah. I'm 100% on board with that because you have to figure out what you have. And I think I was also a little higher on most than Shedeur last year. I saw him as like a borderline first rounder, obviously much earlier than he went, which was I didn't understand the fall there, but yeah, I mean, I would just go ahead and start him and see what you got. There's no point in starting Deshaun Watson. There's no point in starting Dylan Gabriel. Obviously Taylor Green's not ready to play, so see what you have, and then you know what you need to do next year. And if you have a quarterback, great.
Yeah, and the last thing that I want as a Browns fan is to go into 2027 offseason saying, I still don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
We didn't get to see enough. He showed this or he didn't show. I want to know. I want to know for freaking sure.
Yep.
Yes or no.
Yeah, 100% agree.
This episode is sponsored by ButcherBox for Pets. Browns fans, ButcherBox for Pets has a deal you cannot pass up for your 4-legged family members. Right now, you get 50% off your first subscription order of the premium slow-cooked nutrition dog food or the premium fresh dog food. Just go to butcherboxforpets.com/dogs, DAWGS, and use promo code DOGS when you check out. It can get confusing because we're the dogs, we love our fellow dogs, our dog pack members, and the dog pound faithful. But let's not kid ourselves. The most important dogs in our lives are, well, our dogs. And they're not just pets, like I said, they're part of the family. So the question is, what are you actually feeding them? At ButcherBox, they believe in real ingredients. Their pet foods have been developed and certified by vet nutritionists to contain 0 artificial flavors or preservatives. I know our house wouldn't be the same without Odie, our 100-pound golden retriever who thinks he's a 10-pound lap dog. Absolute dumbest dog in the world, but we love him like crazy. And it gives us peace of mind knowing that we're giving him quality food instead of those factory processed blocks from the store. And speaking of the store, no need to add dog food to your shopping list ever again. ButcherBox delivers their high-quality food right to your door. Just choose the delivery schedule that you need for your dog, and you can change, modify, pause, or cancel your plan at any time. So try it out today. Your dog will love you for upgrading their meal times. ButcherBoxForPets.com/dogs and use promo code DAWGS, DAWGS, to get 50% off. That's right, half off your first subscription order of the premium slow-cooked nutrition fresh dog food or the premium fresh dog food. Minimum purchase of just $34. 50% discount applies to subscription orders only. One use per customer, and you can cancel at any time. ButcherBoxForPets.com/dogs. Well, let's real quick then. So the Browns, obviously, A-plus draft. Hats off. Round of applause for Andrew Berry and the team over there. Now, give me the worst draft in the AFC North. Which team of the remaining three got your worst grade and why?
I will qualify by saying I think every team did fine. My worst grade, relatively speaking, was the Bengals, but that was a B-, so still respectable. I liked adding Cassius Howell at 41 because I thought that they really did need some pass rush juice. I think he's probably not going to be super useful as a run defender. He's more of a designated pass rusher, but at the same time, like, they need these type of guys up front, and they're obviously their defensive line is going to be trending in the right direction, having added Dexter Lawrence. For them, I just really think that they should have added a linebacker at some point on day two. Like, this is a really good linebacker class, and they didn't add a single linebacker in this draft. It was kind of confusing to me. Maybe there's another free agent signing coming. I don't want to get too carried away expecting aggressiveness from the Bengals, because I think they've already exceeded my expectations on that front, because they don't really do much, but they kind of changed their tune this year. But I think that they need to add a couple more pieces on defense to really maximize what's possible for that team. So I didn't love their class, but I didn't hate it either. So they were kind of middle of the road.
Okay. And then who would have been next, I guess?
The Steelers were next at a B.
Okay.
I think that they ended up being the target of many jokes and laughs on day one because they got jumped for Mekhi Lemon.
The Mekhi Lemon thing was awesome. As a Browns fan who just hates the Steelers, just despises everything that has to do with them. That was, as much as I loved getting Fano and Concepcion in the first round, that might have been the highlight of my night.
Yes, watching your rivals suffer is a uniquely fun thing about football fandom that almost equals your own team's success. So I get that for sure. I think that the jokes for them missing out it ended up being more of a viral moment than anything else, because I think that, like, this just happens a lot. Like, guys always get sniped on picks and get their guys taken, but I think it's, there were jokes out there about how they just auto drafted after getting their guys sniped, and I don't think that's really the case. Like, I really like Max Ahanacher. I think that he's going to be a good tackle for them, and I think he fills a need, especially with the injury concerns for Broderick Jones coming off his neck issues. And I liked the idea of them adding Jeremy Bernard in the second round. I thought he's a nice fit with DK Metcalf and Michael Pittman. I think that for the most part, they had another nice draft, but it just did not meet my threshold for anything resembling an A when they took Drew Aller in the third round, because that just doesn't do it for me. I get drafting Aller in the same way that I'm on board with drafting Taylor Green, because the tools are there, but Aller is just not the type of guy who's going to be ready to play anytime soon. I think he's a true project. And for the Steelers, who are still waiting on Aaron Rodgers and nothing else, I don't really get the value in spending third-round draft capital on a guy who's not going to be ready to play anytime soon. So I think having Mike McCarthy there is good for a guy like that. He's a proven developer of quarterbacks, but that pick just did not do it for me, and it hurt their grade for sure.
Yeah, I didn't quite understand it either. As an Ohio State Buckeyes fan and everything, we were bummed when they took Will Howard last year, because it's one of the guys that we were hoping the Browns would take late. not Dylan Gabriel. So to have, I feel like Will Howard he was better in college than Drew Aller was.
I mean, I wouldn't disagree with that. There were definitely flashes with Aller at times where it was like, even going back to 2024, on Penn State's run to, I think it was the CFP semifinal, there were flashes where you're like, okay, if the development hits here, like this is a first round pick. But the thing is, it never hit, and then he got hurt, and then I think it was in November, October this past season, and then his season was done, and then he ended up declaring for the draft. So we never actually saw it hit. It could work at the next level, but he just has a long way to go development-wise. I think a lot of it is going to be mechanics and footwork, and I don't know if it's going to work. Again, another guy that I am cool with taking a shot on, but third-round pick was just very rich for me for a team that had very immediate needs at the quarterback position.
Yeah, I mean, he was a guy we were interested in because obviously from the Cleveland area and all that kind of stuff, grew up a Browns fan, but not in the third round. It was, well, if you take him in the fifth round, okay, I'm not going to be upset about it, but don't no sooner than that, you know?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, when they took him in the third, it's like, oh boy, okay. So we got
that's
one
one
left.
that you're celebrating as a division rival.
Yes, absolutely. It's like, all right, cool. They just blew a third round pick. But then again, so did we last year. But hey, whatever. Talk to me about the Ravens.
I think this is just, I give the Ravens a B+. This is just another Ravens draft. Like, they're good at this. Like, they've always been good at this. I think 14, I think I was a little surprised that they weren't the team to end Ruben Bain's slide because he just seemed like such a Ravens pick. That being said, so was Vega Ione. I mean, he's just, they had such a big need on the interior offensive line after losing Tyler Linderbaum in free agency. You know, he's not going to play center, but he upgrades that group at guard for sure. I was super high on him as a player. I think he was one of my borderline top 10 guys in this draft. And another guy who was just the ultimate Ravens pick. They addressed their need on the edge in Zion Young. Really good run defender. I think he's got some juice as a pass rusher as well. I think that you could make the argument that one of the early picks could have been used on a pass catcher after all of the issues they've had there over the years. But I do like the idea of doubling down in a like Diet Coke version of the way that the Browns did it in the third round, just going with Jacoby Lane and Elijah Surratt in the fourth round. You're just taking two shots on two guys who I think can be the kind of big body contested catch guys on the outside that they've been trying to get for a while now. They brought in DeAndre Hopkins for that role, but obviously he's toward the latter stages of his career. So I think that those guys are worthy gambles to fill their need at receiver. And the Ravens are just always that team that is going to be like a B drafter at worst because they're just good at this. So I think that they had a solid draft, but just not quite on the same level as a team like the Browns or the Bucks, who are another one of my other A+ team, just hit after hit and just finding great value. I think that the Browns and Bucks were definitely unique in that way.
Well, that's great information there for not just the Browns, but for the AFC North. Just wanted to give everybody a little bit of an idea of what happened around the division, who we can be looking at as our opponents here starting in 2026. But Dan, I really appreciate you jumping on here and talking to me about these draft picks and giving me your perspective from the weekend. Was there anything else Browns related that you were curious about before I let you go?
Browns related that I'm curious about. I guess I was mostly mostly curious about expectations heading into this year. If you're on the same page as me, being like, okay, like we're not going to get carried away, but we think we have the opportunity to make a jump that kind of sets us up well for the future. Is that the way that the Browns fans are kind of looking at this?
Yeah, I know for me personally, it was before the draft, I was very cynical of how this was going to go. I mean, it was the bottom feeding offense for the last two seasons. I know we changed coaches and everything, but can Andrew Berry repeat the draft success he had last year? I'm like, I don't think it's going to be a very good season. Draft weekend comes and goes. I am on the complete, just like any fan, you know, you flip me to the other side. I'm ready to rock and roll. This team's going to the play, you know, maybe not that crazy, but I do see the path now. I see it because before it's like, who the hell are we thrown to? We had UDFA wide receivers last year playing wide receiver 2. Like, That's not going to work
Yeah.
for your offense. Now we have legitimate, real-life wide receiver prospects coming in here to solidify that position. The offensive line looks so different now, so different. And with Todd Monken, George Warhop, these other coaches that they brought over from Baltimore, I'm definitely way more optimistic about what we can do. Because, like I said, bottom-feeding offense last year, we still won 5 games. Could have won 8. Should have won the Bengals game week 1. Should have won the Vikings game in London. And we could have beat the Bills toward the end of the season. I mean, that's what I love about the NFL. Everything is so close. It's just, a couple things go one way or another, and that's the difference between a win and a loss. And if we're on the right side of some of those this year, it could be a much better season than people were anticipating.
Yeah, and what's the feeling on the Todd Monken hire?
At first it was very like, really, a 60-year-old first-time head coach. But the more he's been around the building and with the team and done interviews, and we've heard from him, and I like him. I like he's so different from Kevin Stefanski, who I was beyond ready to get rid of. And he just seems like a down-to-earth guy. He's not afraid to just tell you how it is. Seems way more relatable, and he actually has proven offensive success over a long stretch of his career, where with Kevin, it just was not working.
Yeah. It was probably time to make a change. But yeah, I mean, he obviously has the background offensively. You just got to hope that there's not a big drop off defensively without Schwartz, because obviously elite defense is hard enough to sustain as it is. But if they can do that, and the new names, especially the new offensive line is just so big, like that's where the games are won. Obviously, if the offensive line has the impact that we're expecting, I think after this conversation, and Todd Monken can kind of help maximize all the playmakers that he now has. Yeah, I think they could be in position to make a jump for sure.
Yeah, and as far as the O-line, how quickly can they gel? Because it's 5 new guys, never played together before, so how quickly can they come together as a unit and create that chemistry and camaraderie? So that'll be big over the summer. But, Todd Monken, I love what he did in like the first voluntary minicamp they had this past month. And they asked him, I forget what the question was. They asked him about, why are you doing this or doing whatever it was at practice? He says, because we're allowed to. Like, he's going to take advantage of everything he's able to do with the team to get them ready, which I feel like may not have been the approach in years past.
Yeah, agreed. I'm fascinated to see how it works out. And the main theme is I think the future is bright. So it's exciting for sure.
Yeah. And I will say for your Raiders, man, I was talking to somebody the other day. They said, do you think they're actually going to be better? I said, I do. They got their quarterback. I think that he may not have the highest tool set of these first round or number 1 overall guys, but he's got what you want in a franchise quarterback. And I really like Kubiak. I think that was a great hire.
Yeah, I'm excited about where they're headed to. I think that it's another team where I'm like, I think that this draft kind of sets the foundation, and you hope to win a couple more games next year than you did this year. Of course, I mean, they had the number 1 pick in the draft, so they better win a couple more games than they did this past year. But I think Mendoza is an exciting prospect. Obviously not like the generational type guy, but I think he's the kind of guy who could be like a true franchise caliber player. And, I don't know that he's going to play too much in year 1. Like, I do think they are actually pretty set on taking their time and allowing him to learn behind Kirk Cousins. We've obviously heard that before. Like, teams will say that, and then week 3, the rookie's in there, and that goes out the window. But I think they're in a bit of a unique situation where, Tom Brady's running the show. He's a guy who's benefited personally from learning behind a veteran, and I think that that's kind of his philosophy. So I wouldn't be surprised if Kirk Cousins starts the majority of the season. We see a little bit of Mendoza down the stretch, and then they kind of, have another aggressive offseason next offseason and try to put themselves in a position to compete the year after.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's probably the path and the plan. And with the moves they've made, I think there's a good chance it works out.
Yeah, I'm another team where it's been a long time, but there's actually a reason to be excited. So it kind of feels weird It's tough to believe it and buy in on at some point, but I think that there's definitely reason to be excited.
I totally get it, man. All us Browns fans can relate 100%. So it's awesome to talk to somebody who's in the same fandom boat that we're in, with a team that just doesn't necessarily have success all the time, but
yeah,
there is reason for optimism. But Dan Wilkins, senior NFL writer from The Score, make sure you guys go over, check out his work. Awesome conversation here, Dan, and we'll definitely have to have you back on the show in the future.
That sounds great. Thanks so much for having me.
All right, thanks again to Dan for joining the show today. I hope you guys enjoyed that conversation. Really great insight from a guy who covers the entire league. Again, senior NFL writer for The Score. Go check out his work over there and see what grades he gave to all the other teams. Obviously, not just the Browns and the AFC North, but everybody else in the NFL. Again, jointhedogs.com if you guys want to join the Dog Pack community. I know I keep saying I'm going to do your voicemails and reactions from the draft, and I'm so sorry. I just keep running out of time. That conversation with Dan went a whole lot longer than what I thought it was going to, because it was just such a great conversation we were having. He's a great guy, and that was a ton of fun. So let me know your feedback. I promise we're going to get to your voicemails and messages on an upcoming episode of the show. But today I just wanted to make sure I got this content to you guys from Dan. So appreciate you tuning in. Talk to you in the next episode, and let's go Browns.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the Dogs Podcast. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube and follow us on Twitter at the Dogs Podcast. Get your thoughts on the show at thedogspodcast.com.
This episode is sponsored by ISSA. Browns fans, if you're into health and fitness, have you ever wondered how you could maybe turn those hobbies and your passion into an actual career? If that sounds interesting to you, then ISSA has the opportunity you've been looking for. ISSA is the International Sports Science Association, and they can help you become a certified personal trainer in as little as 3 months. And right now you can get $100 off your certification when you sign up through our link, joinissa.com/dogs, DAWGS. Now, certifications are 100% online, self-study, and self-paced. You can study anywhere from your phone, tablet, or computer. And the final exam is open note, open book, aka piece of cake. Except you fitness nuts probably don't eat a ton of cake, so let's just call it a piece of delicious protein bar. And ISSA has the #1 job guarantee in the industry. If you get certified and sign up to be a certified trainer with ISSA, you have a job guarantee or your money back. ISSA has over 10,000 gym partners that have over 73,000 open jobs for trainers right now. And you don't need a 4-year degree or a 2-year degree. You just need your certification to qualify for these jobs. So what are you waiting for? With certification this simple, there's no excuse not to pursue your passion and become a certified personal trainer today. Get $100 off your certification at joinissa.com/dogs. You've wanted to make a change long enough? Now it's time to do something about it. That's joinissa.com/dogs for $100 off your personal trainer certification.
Hey, sweetie, your mother showed me this Carvana thing for selling the car. I'm going to give it a try. Wish me luck. Me again. I put in the license plate. It gave me an offer. Unbelievable. Okay, I accepted the offer. They're picking it up Tuesday from the driveway. I haven't even left my chair. It's done. The car is gone. I'm holding a check. Anyway, Carvana, give it a whirl. Love ya.
So good, you'll want to leave a voicemail about it. Sell your car today on
Carvana.
Pickup fees may apply.